Hey everybody, Karen from Master Spirit Guides. I hope you're doing well today. So we are going to have a conversation with the Lead Team Collective, and I know this isn't like the most fun topic, but we're going to talk about death and dying basically. The reason I want to talk about this is if you listen to the podcast Next Level Soul, I listen to it every once in a while, and there happens to be one episode where there was a death doula, which I have heard of before, but I'm fascinated by that. I feel like when it's my time to transition, having a death doula would be amazing. I think I would like to pursue that. So, we have midwives helping babies come into the world, and we have death doulas helping us go out of the world. And I think I don't know, it feels very spiritual to me. But I wanted to talk a little bit. We're going to do a deep dive on what this death doula was talking about. And I just want to check in with the Lead Team Collective to see if the messages that she had were messages that the Lead Team Collective wanted us to have at this time. Okay. So, yeah, so hopefully I think this conversation would have helped me any time of my life, actually. Younger, as I started to discover, I think my first experience with feeling like things don't last forever. Well, I had a few high school friends pass, but the one that really sticks out for me was when a college friend's mother died. And I was like, I want to say I was 20. And it really freaked me out about mothers dying. And so I just remember talking to my mom and being like, no, this can't be possible. I'm sure other people's parents had died prior to me being 20, but that one was really close friend. So I don't think it was anybody that had ever been that close to me. But anyways, so that these kind of conversations have always been interesting to me. And as I get older and look in front of me, I know I'm only 56. Someone who's 30 would be like, yeah, that's old. But I know there's a lot of people here who are in their 80s. And I'm sure like at 56, I feel like how many years, because a lot of people do transition in their 50s. And a lot of people transition when they're 100. So but it is interesting to look at the like number of years you might have. As you get older, you do feel like there are less years. And so I think this kind of conversation is helpful at any time, right? At any time of life, just to kind of process what it might feel like, or to just feel more at ease with the transition process. Thinking at some point we all are going to leave our current avatar, our current costumes, and return to a higher consciousness, higher vibration, source, and probably come back again. So, or go somewhere else. So, okay, so let's see what she had to say. So, we will explore. I've got a little intro as always, and then we'll talk about the different areas. How many areas did she talk about? So we've got 6 different areas about her experience as being a death doula. Okay. And I'd love to know, do we have any death doulas here in our community? Let us know if you're a death doula. That would be amazing. And like I said, so I'll do the intro. I'll say the prayer just to get our energy right with the lead team. And then each of the 6 areas, I've got some questions we'll ask them. Okay. Okay, so so this conversation is about death, dying, and consciousness through the experience of someone who has spent decades sitting with people at the end of life. Rather than approaching death as a single moment or medical event, the discussion looks at what happens emotionally, energetically, and experientially as people approach death, including shifts in awareness, deathbed visions, shared experiences, and how consciousness appears to this person, and we've talked about this, to loosen from the physical body even before the end of the physical body. All right. So that the spirit can leave the soul, can leave the body before it has to, before the final moments or whatever. Okay. So we'll find out about that. All right. So again, there's 6 different areas that she talks about, but let's do the prayer real quick. So I close my aura to all but my higher self, the God consciousness, my guides, guardians, the lead team collective, and only those of the highest and purest light. And ask Archangel Michael to please protect my channel, your channel, the lead team collective, so it is all of the highest and purest light. Amen. Hey, lead team. See how they were doing both and then they just switched to one? They always know what I'm going to ask. How you doing? That's what I usually ask. Or at least thank them. So you guys, thank you so much for all your guidance and support as always for me and our community and everybody here individually as well. So we've got some questions from this conversation that a death doula had. Are you open to answering those questions for us? Yes. Okay. Is there anything that would not be in our best interest to know at this point? No. Okay. All right. So let's see. So the first one is the dying is a process. I think also it's just helpful to kind of think about these things. And let me know if you agree with them. This is just one person's experience, and we're just kind of doing a deep dive on it. So she says dying is a process, not a single moment. So I guess when you're hiring a death doula, that would be true, right? Obviously, there are single moment deaths, ones that happen immediately. So, but those probably obviously don't have a death doula involved. So this would be more for a longer stretched out period of time, whether it's 2 days, a day, but not instantly, obviously. So she says in her experience, awareness often comes and goes near death. Energy rises and falls in waves. And so if you've ever been through this experience, that would be consistent with my experience with my mom passing. The body and consciousness separate gradually. So you have this and I've been told, or I've read somewhere, and I think I might have asked the SGs, that when you are, like my mother-in-law slept a lot. And she also had dementia, kind of end-stage dementia, but she was sleeping a lot. And I always felt, because I had heard this, that she was spending her time outside of her body with her, in the other realm, preparing, and just slowly making that transition. And that really helped me to think of her not just laying in a chair sleeping all the time, but it helped me to think that her consciousness was actually doing other things, right? So, lead team, is that true? Let's just ask about my mother-in-law. So when she was sleeping a lot, was her consciousness spending time in other realms or with her higher self or whatever? Yes. Okay. Well, but was her personality aware that she was just sitting there in her body when her consciousness was not, let's say, available at that time? No. So if somebody would come and wake her up, her consciousness or her spirit, let's say, her spirit could just bounce right back into the body? Yes. Okay. Interesting. I think it helps me. It helps me to think about, because she really just had a long time, like years, to sit in a chair and not really be stimulated that much by her choice. And we tried, but anyways, it was hard to watch. So let's see. Okay. Is dying, so again, these are confirmation questions. Some of them will be confirmation questions and maybe not like the most earth-shattering questions, because these were written by AI, Mabel, versus you guys asking your amazing questions that you usually ask. So is dying typically a gradual process rather than a single event for those who are transitioning slowly? Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, we know it's a gradual process for the body. That's obvious. That someone who transitions from a disease, that's a gradual process, obviously for the body. But is it also a gradual process for the soul, for the spirit, for the consciousness? Yes. Okay. So that would be similar to Marietta, my mother-in-law, um, that that she was her consciousness was also transitioning slowly, not just sitting around waiting for the body to transition. Yes. Okay, that's cool. Do shifts in awareness help prepare someone for the transition? Okay, so that would be like my mother-in-law going in and out of sleep so much, and that was a shift in awareness each time. Yes. Okay. And so that, well, let me ask, because I was always wondering, did she transition that slowly for her? Well, was it for everybody involved, for her and everybody involved? Yes. Was it more for her if we were to put it on a scale, like her soul wanting that experience? No. Was it more for her kids to experience compassion and yes. Okay, and myself, obviously. Does the body release in stages rather than all at once? So release, yes. Interesting. So not just physical ailments, but a releasing of consciousness. So the body releases our spirit in stages? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I thought we'd just pop right out. I suppose it all depends. Does it all depend? Yes. Okay. Can periods of withdrawal serve a meaningful purpose near death? Yes. Okay. Okay. She also talked about consciousness appears to move beyond the body before death. And a lot of us hope this is true when there's a traumatic experience, right? A plane going down, something like that, that you do hope that that is the experience, that the soul just leaves. So let's see. So she says people often see deceased loved ones in her experience. So they probably talk about those. Some report traveling or being elsewhere. I've not heard that before. That I've heard that people see deceased loved ones. My grandmother, when she passed, you could tell I was actually with her and her physical body sat up. And I know her physical body could not have done this if her soul didn't do it. So like she was laying down, like asleep, and she just sat up and was like, and well, she didn't look scared. She actually like looked like she saw something. And then she just faded back. It was really kind of bizarre how her body just popped up. So some report traveling or being elsewhere, and I think my grandmother saw somebody. These experiences don't always match confusion or delirium, she says. Okay, so there might be times like my mother-in-law would have about once a month, she would get a UTI. And the only way they would really know that she had a UTI is because she would start to hallucinate. And the first time she did it, we thought this was the end, like she was actually seeing spirits and stuff like that, which was not the case. She ended up living like a couple more, like a year and a half after that. But so this doula, death doula, is saying the experience that she sees doesn't. So you might think, oh, they're just confused or they're just delirious. She's saying, no, that's not the case. They don't always, some people, she can tell they're delirious or this is something different, right? So that's kind of cool. I guess I didn't read this section on the last one, but one of the reasons Mabel puts this little section together that says this could help in understanding why this particular amount of information, what it could help with, right? Help families trust what they're witnessing. So if you're experiencing this with somebody or you're experiencing it yourself, I kind of like the idea, if I'm going to experience this myself, that I know this now, trusting that am I just having a delirium? Is it just delirium? Is there a UTI? Or, am I really experiencing, my ancestors, my loved ones coming to greet me to prepare for the transition? So I like the idea of being able to trust that as I prepare my own transition. It can reduce the urge to correct or suppress experiences. So if you're working with somebody, if you're a family member and one of your family members is going through this, I think try not to control the situation, to try to correct it or suppress it. Obviously, you want to find out if there's discomfort involved. But I think it's good to think about this so that you don't suppress their experience, their transition. Because I can see how if you don't understand, you get very concerned about it, right? So I think that's a really helpful thing to understand as we help others transition. This could offer, by us understanding this, we could be more likely to offer comfort for those who are transitioning rather than fear. So giving them, like, they may not even understand what's happening. Like, why am I seeing these people right now, or these souls? You know what I mean? If they're not having conversations like this before they transition, which, I don't know how many people do, but a lot of people, follow a religion that they would feel that this would probably be true, maybe. But anyway, so we can at least provide comfort around it rather than fear. And one of the things that especially as an extroverted feeler, I guess you need to be aware whether if you're experiencing a transition with an extroverted feeler or an introverted thinker. Your personality type is gonna want to have the experience in a different way. So I would most likely want to talk about my experience, where a lot of people don't want to talk, like they don't know if they should bring it up, But if you know personality type, the person that you're helping transition, if you know their personality type and can respect that, then like you might want to not ignore the death experience, the transition experience with me, because I would want to discuss it. So, and I probably would, whether you wanted to or not. So you would probably, people who come into my room, if they're coming to greet me to to say goodbye or whatever, they better be ready because I'm probably going to talk about it. Where other people who are introverted thinkers may not want to, but someone like me, an extroverted feeler, would probably think you should talk about it, right? But that wouldn't be appropriate for me as an extroverted feeler to assume that everybody wants to extrovert their feelings about this process either. So it's really about honoring where they're at. But also, if you let's just say you walk into a room to meet with an extroverted feeler and you're an introverted thinker and you're like, I'm not bringing this up. Well, you're going to limit their experience. You might make their experience more difficult. So if you knew they were an extroverted feeler or even an extrovert, it could be an extroverted thinker. They might extrovert differently. They're going to extrovert with more logic than feelings at the beginning of that when they first start talking. But that's why, I mean, this is actually a good conversation regardless if you're working with someone who's transitioning or not, is respecting their way of seeing the world, right? But I do like this idea of providing comfort over fear. It's just the question is, how do you know if you're providing comfort? Because you might have fear, like, I can't bring it up. That's sort of a thing, like I'm not going to bring up a conversation. So every once in a while, like I would ask if my mother-in-law would bring up things about dementia or something. I would say, well, how does that feel to you? How does that feel to you? She was not a feeler, but I just wanted to give her the opportunity to express how she felt. And if she didn't want to talk about it, it was fine. But I wanted to give her the opportunity to say, I'm listening to you. I want to acknowledge that this might be a challenge. And if you want to talk about it, I'm here for you, to talk about it. So, anyways, I kind of went off on that. But okay, so lead team, can consciousness begin separating from the body before death? I like this confirmation. Yes. So I said, can it? Does it always separate from the body before death? Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, that's good. I don't mind that. Are deathbed visions connected to the transition process? Yes. Do all of those who have a do all those who transition slower have visions, whether they talk about them or not? Yes. They might think they're dreaming. Yes. Okay. Do these experiences reflect awareness beyond the physical senses? Yes. Okay. Are such visions more than imagination in many cases? Yes. But it depends on the human and whether they believe it's a vision, hallucination, imagination, right? Yes. Do most of them bring comfort regardless? Yes. Okay, good. So I guess, does it really matter if a person believes it's their imagination? No. Okay. So as long as it brings comfort. Is that the whole purpose of it? Is to bring comfort? Well, that's good. Yes. Okay. Okay. She also says death experiences obviously are highly personal. People experience what is meaningful to them, which is a little bit what I was just saying in terms of even personality type. Symbols reflect personal beliefs and life history. So again, how somebody is going to see things is going to be based on their own experiences. We just have to be careful that we're not, which, if you're used to kind of controlling things in life with others, children, spouses, whatever, or being responsible for certain things, that is probably one of my biggest challenges, is letting, especially my husband, be who he needs to be on earth. That has been one of my life lessons. And I've come a really long way. I still have a little ways to go, but I'm come a long way on that. There is no universal or scripted experience, is what she says. So there's no universal or scripted experience. It's very personal, based on what you are hoping to have. So let's see. So this could help remove pressure to compare experiences. It can help families honor what feels real for their loved ones, and encourages acceptance rather than interpretation, like acceptance of whatever the experience is versus trying to understand it all the time, right? Okay, are death experiences shaped by a person's inner world? Yes, that's interesting, because you always see it as really shaped by the outer world, but it's really their inner world. Does personalization help ease the transition? I can imagine. Yes. Can symbolic experiences be just as meaningful as literal ones? I don't really understand that. Yes. Is there value in allowing each person's process to unfold uniquely? Yes, just like their lives. Just like their lives. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. She also said loved ones may share experiences with the dying. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. My sister-in-law, we were just meeting with her yesterday, and she was talking about when a priest came, which was very, very important to my mother-in-law. When a priest came, and wasn't there, we lived about 4 hours away, so we weren't there at this time. And, but my mother, it was a couple days before, and her face just lit up. And she'd been sleeping. So she just, like, she just totally lit up. And a lot of the siblings were there, and some grandchildren too, and some in-laws. So that was, it was hard. She said they were all crying and everything, but it was a very, she's talking about that because it was a very moving experience. So what the death doula says is family members sometimes have share. Oh, this is interesting. This is not how I interpreted that. She says family members sometimes have shared visions or dreams. Has that happened to any of you? Have you had share visions or dreams before someone has transitioned in your life? Wow. That your family member also had? That's incredible. I have not heard that before. So these experiences can happen before or after death, and connection may continue even as the body weakens with the loved ones, obviously. Oh, interesting. Interesting. That is fascinating. You guys need to comment. I need to know this. Has that ever happened to anybody where they had a shared vision or a dream with a family member who was transitioning and you guys actually talked about it? Wow. Okay, so lead team. Can loved ones have shared visions and dreams that the person transitioning also has during the dying process? Wow, that's incredible. Are dreams a common way for connection to occur? Yes. Huh. Can these experiences support both the dying and the living? It's kind of a no-brainer. Yes. Is shared awareness more common near death than people realize? Yes. Okay. I'm really starting to understand that that's probably absolutely true. Just because of us being soul families and probably having gone through these huge experiences together constantly over and over and over again. So I can imagine that we are having, yes, okay. And our energy is so connected. Is that why? Because our energies and our vibrations and our souls are so connected, being in soul families? Yes. Okay. Is that why, like, some people will say, some people have, like, they'll get a image of somebody passing when they actually are passing, or a vision of somebody coming to visit them? Yes. Okay. And is this, so that would be more like a long distance thing, like someone who dies suddenly. There's people who have those experiences too. Okay, the death doula says fear and belief systems can influence the dying process, right? Which is why my goal is for myself and having conversations here, is to reduce the fear, is really to reduce the fear around it. So what she says is fear-based beliefs may create distress. So we've got people who believe they might go to hell, you know. We have people who believe they didn't do what they needed to do to come when they came here, or they're going to meet their maker and, they haven't atoned for their sins because they really have been brainwashed to believe that that is something they better have done, or they're not going to meet their maker, that kind of thing. I can imagine that happens a lot. It's going to happen to some people in my own family because that's what they believe. Hopefully they don't experience that. Like, hopefully they believe they lived the life they needed to live so that the conditioning that they had won't won't create fear. There's already enough fear around, transitioning, letting go of our physical bodies, right? So that, the last thing you need is like fear around your conditioning that you had. But, that's probably part of the experience too, that we've chosen to come here to have. So she says some people appear to work through guilt or fear. Yeah, guilt or fear. Yeah. Or again, where are they going? Like I can imagine like where, you would think that someone like so I shouldn't I shouldn't say it. Someone that we know, like, I don't know, you guys are all becoming aware of people doing not very nice things in the world, right? I mean, there's always been people who don't do nice things in the world, but you wonder on their deathbeds, do they have any guilt? I guess it depends on how narcissistic they are. She says a calm presence can help ease the process. Now, the one thing that I have noticed people do when I've been around people who are passing is to try to comfort people too soon. So they'll start talking about something. And then I see other people say, no, 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 you're fine. No, 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 you're fine. But they need to process that, right? So if they want to talk about it, not because if the minute you say, oh, no, no, you're fine, that's not going to happen to you. That doesn't mean they believe that still. So I try to really, and I'll say, but if I see that happen, I just know not to do that because I've been in a counseling situation my entire life in terms of working in higher ed. So, I just have a lot of experience. But, and I would say, if I see that happening, I would just say, if someone said, no, 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 that's fine, you're not going to experience that. And you could just say, well, what do you could just kind of chime in and say, oh, but, I'm curious to know how that feels for you, or what are you thinking about right now, or something like that, just to kind of open the window to see if they want to talk about it. But try really hard not to say, you're fine, everything's fine, you're going to be fine, because that's what you need. That doesn't mean that's what they need. All right. Maybe they do. And maybe they do. Maybe they do need you to just say they're fine. But you could ask, you know what I mean? We just have to be it's kind of a, it's a tricky time, isn't it? Anytime we're trying to support somebody through grief, through any of these kind of things, it can be tricky. Okay, so lead team. Whoop. Can unresolved fear affect how someone experiences dying? Yeah, that kind of sucks. I think that sucks, but whatever. I mean, yes, really wide swing, really wide swing. Does emotional safety support a smoother transition? So that's a really good way to think about it, you guys, is emotional safety. What can you do if you're on the other end of this process to provide emotional safety anytime you're in their presence, basically? Can loving presence help ease internal struggle near death? Yes. Yes. Is non-judgment more helpful? Okay, this is interesting. Is non-judgment more helpful than reassurance alone? Yes, it's that reassurance that I was telling you, because they may not believe you if you're just constantly reassuring them. They may not believe you. So, okay. I like the idea of emotional safety. It's what can you do to provide emotional safety, if you think about it that way. Okay, finally, she says consciousness may continue. Now we believe it does, beyond physical death. Okay, she has seen patterns appear across cultures and experiences. Accounts resemble near-death experiences. Death may represent a shift rather than an end. Okay. This one's kind of like, I think in this community, we talk, I mean, obviously, I'm talking to our spirit guides who have had earthly experiences. So this part's kind of a no-brainer, I think, for us in this community. But well, let's just ask. We'll just ask here. So, lead team, does consciousness, which is funny because if it didn't, they wouldn't be responding to me. Does consciousness continue beyond the physical body for every single human who transitions? Yes. And animal? Yes. And insect? Yes. And tree? Anything in nature? Yes. Okay. Is death better understood as a transition of state? Whatever that is, as a transition. It's better understood as a transition. I like that. I like calling it a transition. I don't really like calling it death anymore. I like calling it when they transition, which I don't know, feels better to me. Do recurring patterns point to something real rather than coincidence? Yes. Okay. So near-death experiences are there's a pattern to that. Those are real, correct? Yes. Do people have near-death experiences so that they can come back and share information with us so that we can get to this point? Yes. Does it help raise our vibration? Yes. Will everybody who transitions to the 5D permanently, as we work on that transition, will we understand this like 100%? Yes. Will we fear the transition like we do now in the 5D? No. Okay. Well, that's nice. All right. Can awareness persist without the body? Yes, I smile because I think we all know the answer to that. Yes. Okay, cool. All right, well, lead team, thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. It's helpful for me. I like process, my extroverted emotional or my extroverted feeler likes to process these things out loud. So that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I hope it was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments what was the most helpful for you. So, all right, take care. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.